She opened the door barefoot, hair slightly undone, like she hadn't meant to look that good, and maybe that's what made it worse. "Hey," she said, leaning on the frame. "You actually came." I wasn't sure what she meant by actually. My friend had asked me to drop off a few boxes, help his sister since her husband was away. That was the story. But standing there, seeing her in that soft sweater that slipped a little too easily off her shoulder, I knew it was something else. Her name was Clara. 46. Calm voice, the kind that made noise feel rude. She had that way of watching people, as if she saw through what you were saying and decided quietly what to believe. I followed her inside. The house was warm, but strangely still, like it hadn't been laughed in for a while. There was coffee on the counter, half cold. A radio murmured somewhere in another room, too low to make out the song. She pointed to the boxes by the hallway. Just these. Nothing heavy. But she didn't move. Just stood there with one hand resting on the table, fingers tracing a ring mark in the wood. I said something stupid like, "No problem," and started lifting. She watched, not in a rude way. More like she hadn't had company in a long time and didn't quite know what to do with it. When I passed her, her sleeve brushed my arm. It was the kind of touch that shouldn't mean anything, except it did. "You're quieter than I remember," she said. "You remember?" She smiled barely. "You used to come around when you were in high school. You'd sit in the kitchen, never talk much. Just watched everything." I laughed. "I didn't think you noticed." Her eyes met mine then, steady, unreadable. I noticed more than people think. The silence that followed didn't feel empty. It was a hum, low and electric, stretching between us. I set the last box down and wiped my hands on my jeans. "That's it. Already?" she asked. "Yeah, unless there's more hiding somewhere." She tilted her head, her smile softening, the kind that holds a secret. "Maybe there is." Her voice was gentle, but the air shifted. The rain outside started tapping on the windows, steady and slow. She walked toward the window, crossed her arms, and said, "You can stay a while if you're not in a rush." I should have said I had somewhere to be. I didn't, so I stayed. She made tea, loose leaves, not bags. The smell of mint and something floral filled the room. When she handed me the cup, her fingers brushed mine again, and this time neither of us pulled away. "You look tired," she said. "Maybe. You shouldn't work so much. You're too young to look that serious." I smiled. "You sound like my mom." She laughed, but her eyes didn't. "I doubt your mom looks at you like I do." That line didn't sound planned. It slipped out like a thought she'd meant to keep. She turned away quickly, pretending to check the kettle. Her shoulders tensed, then softened again. I stared at her back, the quiet curve of it, the faint reflection of rain light on her skin. The radio had stopped. All I could hear was her breathing. When she turned again, she didn't meet my eyes. She just said, "Could you grab a blanket from the couch?" I nodded and walked into the living room. The blanket was folded neatly, like it hadn't been touched in months. As I turned back, the front door creaked open. Her expression froze. A man's voice called out from the hallway. "Clara, you home?" The cup in her hand trembled. She looked at me, eyes wide, lips parted, and whispered, almost too quietly to hear, "Don't say anything." The voice from the hallway belonged to her husband. At least, that's what my friend had said when he sent me. I'd never met the man, just knew he traveled for work, gone for weeks at a time. But that night, his voice didn't sound like someone coming home. It sounded like a memory, faint, uncertain. Clara froze, then relaxed just enough to make it seem like nothing was wrong. "It's just the TV," she called out, her voice steady but low. Thought I heard something. A pause. Then the door shut again. Tires crunched on the gravel outside, fading into the rain. When the sound was gone, she exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for a year. "Sorry," she said softly, turning away. "He drops by sometimes, when he forgets things." I didn't ask. I didn't need to. The room felt smaller after that. Not from fear, from knowing too much. The rain pressed against the windows. The clock ticked too loudly, and her hand trembled slightly when she poured the tea again. "You okay?" I asked. She smiled, but it was one of those smiles that came with effort. "I'm fine. Just tired." But she didn't look tired. She looked like someone pretending not to be lonely. I sat back down, unsure what to do with my hands. Every gesture suddenly felt wrong. Too casual or too careful. She sat across from me, tucking one leg under the other, the hem of her sweater slipping just enough to show the edge of her collarbone. She caught me looking. "You still do that," she said. "Do what?" "Watch people. Like you're studying them." "I guess I am." She didn't look away. "What do you see?" I hesitated. "Someone who hides how she feels." Her breath hitched, quiet, almost invisible, but it was there. "Maybe I'm just used to not being asked," she said. Something in her tone hit harder than I expected. It wasn't self-pity. It was honesty. The kind people don't offer unless they think you'll understand. "My husband and I," she began, then stopped. "We've been different for a long time. He travels. I stay. That's the rhythm." She looked down at her cup, turning it in her hands. "You reach a point where silence feels safer than trying again." I nodded, though I couldn't quite swallow the knot in my throat. I told her about my last relationship, a girl my age who said I was too quiet, too serious. I didn't tell her the truth, that I hadn't stopped thinking about Clara since I was 17. The rain softened to a drizzle. She stood and walked to the shelf to put away her cup, brushing past me in the narrow space. Her hand grazed my shoulder, a light touch, but it stayed longer than it should have. Neither of us moved. When she finally did, her voice was low, almost a whisper. "You should go before it gets late." I stood too, but I didn't step away. For a second, the space between us felt like the edge of something fragile, a truth neither of us was ready to touch. She looked up at me, eyes dark and searching. "You were always kind," she said. "That's what I remember most." Her fingers brushed mine as she reached for the door. It wasn't an accident this time. And when I left, her warmth still clung to my hand, a quiet, dangerous reminder that this wasn't supposed to happen, but already was. The next time I saw Clara, it wasn't planned. I'd gone to drop something off for her brother, my friend, who'd forgotten a set of house keys. He said Clara would be home, but he didn't mention she'd be alone again. She opened the door, surprised but not unhappy. "You," she said, a small breath of disbelief. "Your brother asked me to come in," she cut in softly. "You'll get soaked out there." Rain again. Always rain with her. The house smelled like oranges this time, and something faintly floral. She was barefoot, wearing one of those long cardigans that hang loose at the wrists. Her hair was up, but a few strands had fallen free. "You look like you've been busy," I said. "I was cleaning," she replied. "Or pretending to." We both smiled, and for a few seconds the air didn't move. She turned on the kettle. The sound filled the silence. I sat at the table, the same chair as last time. She didn't sit. She leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching me. "Your brother said you're helping him with that new project," she said. "Yeah," I answered. "He mentioned you've been asking about me." She blinked. "Did he?" Her voice slipped just a little. I nodded. "He said you told him I seemed different lately." She looked away. "Maybe I was just curious." "You've grown up." I wanted to say, "So have you," but the word stayed stuck somewhere behind my teeth. The kettle whistled. She poured water into 2 cups, careful, deliberate, like she needed the task to steady her hands. When she set one in front of me, her fingers brushed mine again. Same warmth, same electricity that made everything else vanish. "You ever think about that night?" I asked quietly. Her eyes lifted. "Which night?" "You know which one." She hesitated. I try not to. "Why?" "Because it's easier." I laughed softly. "Doesn't seem like it's working." That made her laugh too, a quiet, almost guilty sound. Before either of us could say more, the front door rattled. We both froze. It was her brother's voice this time. "Clara? You home?" She mouthed, "Don't move," then stepped toward the hallway. Her voice rose, steady. "In the kitchen." I heard them talk for a minute. Just small things, groceries, weekend plans. I could hear the smile she was forcing. Then, suddenly, "Is someone here?" he asked. My heart stopped. She paused, just a heartbeat too long, before saying, "No, just the radio." When he left, the silence that followed was too thick to breathe. She turned back to me, her face pale. "You shouldn't be here." "I know." "Then why are you?" I stood up. She didn't back away this time. Rain drummed against the window. Between us, that same space again, thin as breath. She looked up at me, eyes tired, soft, and full of something she didn't want to name. You make me forget things, she whispered. What things? She swallowed. Everything I'm supposed to remember. The air between us broke then. Not with a kiss, but something quieter. She reached up, fingertips grazing my jaw, just for a second, then let them fall. I can't do this, she said, but her voice betrayed her. Neither of us stepped back. The sound of thunder rolled through the house. Her hand hovered again, halfway to mine, trembling. And for one impossible heartbeat, before the world rushed back, it felt like we both stopped pretending. She didn't call for days after that. Maybe I should have been relieved, a sign that we both still had sense left. But I wasn't. Every night, I caught myself checking my phone, replaying her voice, the way she'd looked at me before pulling away. Where a message finally came, it was short. Can you stop by? Just for a minute. No explanation. No emojis. Just that. When I got there, the porch light was off. Rain again, soft this time, more like a whisper than a storm. She opened the door before I even knocked. You shouldn't have come, she said, but her tone said the opposite. I stepped inside. The house was dim, lit only by the small lamp near the couch. She was in a gray t-shirt and jeans, simple, but made her look impossibly real. Tired, beautiful, human. I just wanted to make sure you're okay, I said. I'm not, she answered quietly. But that's not your job. I almost smiled. You call me anyway. She exhaled, running a hand through her hair. I shouldn't have. Why did you? She looked at me. Really looked, then said, because I can't stop thinking about that night. About you. The words hit hard, heavier than I expected. I've tried to ignore it, she went on, voice trembling just enough to break the calm. I tell myself it's nothing, that it's just a tension, she stopped, shaking her head. But then you show up, and it's like her voice faltered. Like what? I asked, stepping closer. Her breath caught. Like I forget who's supposed to be the adult here. The air between us felt sharp, almost alive. I could hear her breathing, feel it, short, uneven, the kind that betrays everything you're trying to hide. I reached up without thinking, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. She didn't move away. Her skin was warm, and my hand lingered just a second too long. Clara, I said, tell me to stop. She didn't. Instead, she whispered, you don't know what this could do. Maybe I don't care. That made her eyes soften, not from relief, but surrender. You should, she said. Because I do. Her voice broke on the last word, and that was worse than anything. She turned away, hands pressed to the edge of the table, as if she needed something solid to hold on to. I moved behind her, close enough to feel the warmth radiating through her shirt, the faint scent of mint from her hair. Say it, I murmured. Say you don't want this. She closed her eyes. Don't make me lie. Her shoulders trembled. I reached out, fingertips brushing down her arm, stopping at her wrist. She turned slightly, just enough that her face was inches from mine. Everything slowed, her breath, my heartbeat, the soft tick of the clock. Then, a knock at the door. Loud, sharp. We froze. She looked at me, eyes wide, mouth barely parted. The knock came again. Clara? It's me, a voice said. Her husband. She whispered, barely moving her lips, hide. And before I could think, she grabbed my hand, led me toward the back room, and the door swung open behind us that I hid in the narrow hallway, heart pounding so loud I was sure it would give me away. Through the half-open door, I heard voices, low, careful. Her husband sounded different this time. Not casual, not forgetful. Controlled. I thought you were gone for the week, Clara said, her tone too even. I was, he replied. But I needed to talk to you. Something in his voice made the hairs on my neck rise. She hesitated. Now's not really. I saw your messages. Silence. Then the scrape of a chair, the faint rattle of her breath. What messages? She asked too quickly. You think I wouldn't notice? That number that keeps popping up? Your brother's friend? My stomach dropped. He went on. The one who's been dropping by? Helping with boxes? Clara's voice came quieter, trembling. You're overreacting. Am I? He asked. Because you don't look me in the eye when you say that. Every word felt like it might break something invisible between us. I could see her through the crack in the door, her back straight, one hand gripping the table edge so hard her knuckles whitened. He took a step closer. Are you seeing him? She didn't answer. He laughed under his breath, sharp, not amused. You've changed, Clara. You used to be predictable. Now you're acting like you've got something to hide. When he turned away for a second, she glanced toward the hallway, right at me. Not pleading, not afraid, just knowing. It was the look of someone realizing there's no way out that won't cost her something. Finally, she said, I think you should go. He stared at her for a long moment. Then, quietly, You've already decided, haven't you? He left without slamming the door. That somehow made it worse. When the sound of his car faded, she stood there, motionless. I stepped out, unsure if I should speak. Clara, she turned. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears, but her voice stayed calm. You shouldn't have heard that. I didn't mean to. I know, but now you know too much. I moved closer, stopping a few feet away. He had no right to talk to you like that. Her expression twisted. Not anger, not sadness, something in between. He's not wrong, though. I have changed. You're not the only one, I said quietly. That made her look up. Our eyes locked, and something in her softened. Not in surrender, but in recognition. She stepped closer, just a breath away. You shouldn't make this harder. Then tell me to go. She shook her head slowly. I can't. Her hands trembled as she brushed past me toward the counter, but I caught her wrist gently, stopping her. She froze, eyes darting to mine. Clara, I said, was any of this a lie? She looked away, swallowing. No, then softer. That's the problem. The air between us burned. Fear and want tangled together, impossible to separate. Finally, she whispered, he's coming back tomorrow. You shouldn't be here when he does. Then I'll come tonight, I said, before I could think. Her eyes widened. Don't say things you can't take back. I don't want to take it back. She stared at me, breath uneven, lips trembling, and for a moment, everything around us vanished. Then she whispered the words that changed everything. Then come. But if you do, nothing stays the same after. Night again. Always night. Her message had been just 3 words. Don't come late. When I reached her house, the lights were low. Only one lamp burned in the living room, casting everything in gold and shadow. She stood by the window, arms folded, watching the street. When she turned toward me, she didn't smile, just breathed out slow, like she'd been holding that breath since I left. You really came, she said. I said I would. I didn't think you'd mean it. Her voice was quiet, but something inside it shook. I stepped closer. You said nothing stays the same after tonight. I know, she whispered. That's why I almost didn't open the door. We stood there, close enough to feel the warmth rising between us, the faint scent of rain still clinging to my jacket. Neither of us moved. The silence had weight, a kind that pressed down but didn't crush. It just made everything sharper. Finally, she said, if we do this, I don't get to pretend anymore. I shook my head. Neither do I. She reached out, fingers trembling, and touched the edge of my sleeve. It wasn't much, but it was enough to break something inside both of us. I used to think I was done feeling like this, she said, wanting something I can't have. You can have it, I said. She gave a sad smile. You think it's that simple? No, I admitted, but I think it's real. That made her close her eyes. Her shoulders fell, like she'd been waiting to hear that even though she didn't want to. When she looked at me again, she stepped closer until I could feel her breath against my neck. My hands rose on their own, hesitating just before touching her. Clara, I said, tell me to stop. She whispered, I can't. Then the world went silent. No rain, no clock, just the sound of her breathing, the soft hum of everything we'd been fighting. Her forehead rested against mine, and I felt her laugh quietly, a shaky, broken thing. You make me feel stupid, she said. You make me feel alive, I answered. That stopped her. She looked up, eyes bright and wet, searching for something, maybe permission, maybe courage. Her hand found mine, fingers interlocked, and then she let go. Just like that. She stepped back, wiping her face, steadying her breath. You need to go, she said, voice thin but sure. I stood there trying to read what had changed. Why? Because if you stay, I'll stop thinking. And I've already done enough damage trying not to. I nodded slowly. It hurt, but it made sense, the kind of truth that lives inside silence. As I reached the door, she spoke again. You'll hate me for this. No, I said quietly. I'll remember you for it. Her lips parted like she might say something more, but instead she just smiled. Tired, real, heartbreaking. And as I stepped out into the rain, I realized that for the first time, we weren't pretending anymore. We both finally understood. Wanting something doesn't mean you get to keep it, but it means it was real enough to want it. It had been 3 weeks since that night. The rain finally stopped. The air carried that early spring smell. Wet pavement, something new beneath it. I hadn't seen Clara since. Not because I didn't want to, but because she'd asked for space, and I figured that's what grown people did when things got too close. But every day, the memory found its way back. Her voice, the weight of silence between us, the way she'd said, "You make me feel stupid," and meant you make me feel alive. When she finally called, it wasn't late or dramatic. Just simple. Can we talk? I met her at the park near her house, where the trees bent low and the benches never dried completely. She was sitting there already, hair down, no makeup, just herself, the version I think I was always waiting to see. When she looked up, her smile was small, but it reached her eyes. "You still come when I call." "Every time," I said. We both laughed at how easy it was to fall back into the quiet. No tension, no storm, just air and the sound of leaves shaking above us. "I didn't think you'd want to see me," I said. "I didn't for a while," she admitted. "I thought ending it was the only way to stop it from ruining us." "Did it?" She shook her head. "No, it just made me realize how much I missed being seen." I sat down beside her, close enough that our knees brushed. She didn't pull away this time. "You were never invisible," I said. She looked at me, really looked, and for a second I saw it again, that flicker of the first night. Curiosity, danger, tenderness, all tangled together. "You know," she said, "I used to think love was supposed to feel certain. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's just moments that stay." Her hand moved slowly toward mine, resting halfway, waiting. I closed the gap, fingers threading through hers. Her skin was warm, steady. No ruse, no hiding. Just quiet understanding. "You're still young," she whispered. "You'll have other lives, other people." "Maybe," I said, "but none of them will be this one." She smiled then, tired, honest, at peace. That's enough for me. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. She leaned her head against my shoulder, and I let my arm rest around her, fingers tracing small circles against her hand. The light faded through the trees, soft and golden, the way it does when the world forgives you a little. We sat there, breathing the same air, knowing that whatever came next, distance, silence, time, we'd already crossed the line that mattered. We'd chosen each other, even if only for this moment. And for once, it felt like enough. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?